make sure we're coming through. Hopefully everything works how it's supposed to. Are we ready? And are we ready? Can you hear me? All right, we're gonna get into it. Hip Hop Lit for Life, welcome. All right, take two. We had some technical difficulties with the live stream software shutting down, so hopefully we'll make it through this one. Welcome, and Hip Hop Lit for Life. So really it's just looking at life through the lens of hip hop culture, and for like these next 10 classes or so, I'm focusing on the rap writing process and really just what you learn about rap writing, but also what you learn about your own self through the art of writing raps. So today we're going to talk about the writing process as a way of having just kind of a understanding of what goes into writing, and then the next classes we'll start digging into the specifics of rap writing, getting into the art of rap writing. So welcome, and first let's do what we need to do. Got to connect, got to build. It's a live class, so for those in the chat, here we go. We gotta make sure things work. All right, so last class, if you watched the stream or checked it out, I had a joke for you. All right, the joke was, what can a battle rapper use for protection against the harshest rhymes? And the answer is bubble wrap. Yes, I know. Great. And the joke for today's class, all right, what's the rap name for someone who doesn't work? What's the rap name for someone who doesn't work? And in the comments, just put your suggestions, because really any name you come up with is going to be hilarious. I do have one in mind, but I did this with my class this week, and they came up with some great names. I think there was like a lot of them had Lil in the name, like Lil No Work, something like that. So anyway, let me know what you think. What's the rap name for someone who doesn't work? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat, and I'll share the joke answer next week or next class, which happens to be next week. All right, our Cypher question for us to connect is, what's the most interesting thing you've learned in the past month? And I want to give a kind of 3 minutes for folks to kind of share their thoughts on this. And I guess I'm going to share my thoughts on this right now as well, because why not? So the most interesting thing I've learned in the past month, let me see, last 30 days. Oh, okay. So for the last 30 days and more, I've been freestyling every day and posting it on my Instagram TV account. And the most interesting thing that's kind of really been sticking with me, and it's actually kind of this profound shift, is it's really the difference between like that eagerness of like wanting to complete a rhyme when you're freestyling, and versus the patience and kind of trusting the process and knowing that the words will come. It's kind of high level stuff as far as like, like for you to really kind of understand what I'm talking about, you would need to be freestyling, and I'm kind of guiding this class for more like beginners. But if you've ever tried freestyle, you know that like, you might have your first couplet set up, and then the next one might be a little bit hard to get to, and so you're trying, right? You have this effort to try to figure out what you're going to say next, and you want to rhyme, you want to say something that's ill, that's dope, and so all that want emotionally kind of creates a anxiousness in your freestyle. And for me, with that anxiousness, it like tightens me up. My shoulders kind of go up, my throat gets all tight and constricted, and all this energy is kind of going into tensing me up. And as I get tense, I notice that the kind of thoughts that come to me are the thoughts that are things I've already said before. And so if I'm trying to like explore new things and discover new ideas, me being tense is not the way to go about it. So by doing this every day, I've noticed I was able to pay attention to that feeling and then connect it to the fact that, I'm wanting and not trusting that I'll have the rhyme or the ideas when I need them. So the flip side of it, what I learned how to trust, right? I've been doing this long enough that, I know the process of freestyling. And so I don't have to be eager for the next idea. As long as I set the intention that I'm freestyling, then I know the words and the thoughts and ideas will come, and I can stay relaxed. And then it's from this relaxed place I deliver a more powerful freestyle. So yes, we're talking about rap writing, but I think really paying attention to the experience of freestyling allows you to pay attention to your experience of doing anything, and then you can do it with more joy and more enjoyment of it, because you're not getting caught up. You're not getting caught up in our own stories and anxieties about like the things that we want and not getting them and all that. So that's the most interesting thing I've learned in the past month, and it's been pretty profound. Looking forward to hearing what you share and what you've learned this month that was been interesting for you. All right, we're digging into it. Your writing process. Really brief overview of the writing process is really, there's this quote that's kind of famous, or this idea that goes around about writing, which is that all writing is really rewriting. And you can break it down into these three parts, right? You have your pre-writing, which is the thinking about what you're going to talk about and gathering ideas, and then putting things down, on paper, or even just holding them in your head about like, okay, here are the things that I may or may, present in my writing. And then there's a writing process where you're actually building the draft. So in the cases of rap writing, it might be your first take on a verse or an idea. Then there's rewriting, when you come back and look at your first draft and your previous drafts and start seeing like, all right, like what ideas do I leave in? What ideas do I take out? What's the effect of taking out these ideas? And since we're doing rap writing, unless you're publishing your raps, right? The editing is more about delivery than necessarily like grammar and punctuation and all that stuff. But if you're publishing your raps, you might have some grammar and punctuation things to do. But it's a process. It keeps going. And I think there's a couple things that, that people do in the rap writing world where they don't expect it to be as much of a process as it is. They think it's something different from the kind of writing that's quote unquote taught in school, right? So again, the writing process is a creative process. It's something that, is really non-linear. People start in different places of the process, but it does boil down to those three steps: pre-writing, writing, and rewriting to get the best results from it. So, and another way I like to think of writing is like a puzzle, especially rap writing, because you have the conventions, you have the things that make a rap, the rhythm requirements, the rhyming requirements, and the in sync with the music requirements as far as the cadence, right? And there might be some subject requirements depending on the type of rap that you're writing. But from a standpoint, when you take the topic out of it so much, the form presents its own puzzle. And so you're always kind of thinking about like, how do we make certain ideas fit while making the rhymes line up and the rhythm match. So, and really all writing, I like this quote from Roy Peter Clark, who was a writing teacher. He's written some books about writing that I teach from. And he says the act of writing always includes problem solving. And so if you can shift your mind around writing to that of it's problem solving, then your ability to solve the various problems that come up in the writing will keep your pen flowing and not have you get stuck or blocked and make it harder than it actually is by kind of beating yourself up that you're not getting the progress. You're not making the process. You're not doing the making the progress that you want to make in your writing attempts. All right. So take some time and think about your challenges with writing. So what has been your biggest challenges with writing? And in the comments, in the chat, share your thoughts. Like what comes up for you as you go about writing, anything. It could be a rap verse, it could be, articles, it can be, essays for school or whatever. But whenever you sit down and think about, okay, I'm going to write something, what are the biggest challenges that get in your way? So I'm going to give you, let's do 3 minutes with that, and I will be back in that time. So 3 minutes, you'll hear the air horn go off when our time is up, and I'll go ahead and get started. So you can also think about this when you're getting started, like what blocks and challenges come up for you. And maybe some of your challenges might be not so much the getting started part, but like during the process. What comes up there? Just over a minute remaining, and then we'll move on. I'm liking this beat right here. Make a note. What's that? Okay. So yeah, we'll talk about finding words and assessing progress. That seems a little bit of a couple of problems mixed together, right? Being able to. All right. Cool. Thank you for doing that. And if you're watching this later, you can always use the comments as well to put your thoughts in. All right, so we're going to talk about essentially 7 problems that every writer, even rap writers, face. Some are very clear and obvious. You can see the correlation between rap writing and other forms of writing. And there's some of them that are a little bit maybe, because of not everybody's writing raps every day, right? So here are the 7 problems, areas, right? So getting started, getting organized, finding focus, finding the words, crafting the draft, assessing your progress, and then making it better. So essentially, every time you go to write, you're going to be dealing with these 7 problem areas, right? And for me, like in teaching and like, teaching high school, right? You know, if you think of it like, okay, it's really just problem solving, and you think about like, okay, so yes, I have this assignment to write and I don't like know where to begin. All right, that's a getting started problem, and there's strategies for that, right? If you know how to begin, but all of a sudden you don't know how to like put the thoughts together, and that's kind of like a getting organized problem. And really getting organized is also about like your writing processes, in the sense of like, when do you write, how much time you devote to it. So more of like the actions you take to complete the writing. The finding focus piece is really when you get down to like, all right, I'm going to put everything on the draft, and then it's like, okay, what is this really about? And I think with freestylers who go to rap writing, or even people who are writing free verses, this can be one of those interesting problems to address. Finding the words pretty straightforward, right? It's language. Crafting the draft, I'm curious about this. I have a suspicion about how people approach this in the rap world. It's basically like everybody wants to do it in one take, and no one really wants to like take some time with it, and then figuring out if you're on the right track. That's the progress one, and then making it better is revision, essentially. So getting started, major problems in this area are the no ideas and then how to start. No ideas and how to start. And so I guess what I'm going to ask you, and maybe we'll just do 90 seconds on it. So when you're coming across, so really, what does this look like for you as a rap writer, right? So what does it look like when you're having trouble getting started? So like, what are your ideas? What does it look like? And then what, how do you go about solving that, right? When you don't have any ideas, what do you do to try to get some ideas? And if you don't know how to start, what do you do to try to figure out how to start that? So let's take 90 seconds on that one and just kind of reflect on that. So the challenges that come up for getting started. And towards the end, I'll probably share some of like what it was like for me in the beginning of this. Anything? Okay. Hide the jackal, I like that. It's about 10 more seconds with it. Okay. Yes. So a lot of us, I'm seeing it in the chat, right? Basically, we've kind of, I guess I would say yes, the simplest problem probably to address, I think, is the getting started one. It's simply just starting, right? Now, if you have things that kind of get in your way to like starting, like I think the how to start might get to might be some kind of a bigger barrier. Because again, for me, when I was learning how to write raps, I did not have, YouTube, right? I had basically the professional rap songs I was listening to, and no one really talked about process, right? And so you're, again, doing that puzzling to try to figure out how do you create this finished product that you hear. And it took me a while to figure it out, but because I actually went through that process, I have a better understanding of like, how do you go from the beginning, like I have no ideas, to a finished rap verse. But most of us now, if you don't know how to start, you can do a Google search or something to figure out, all right, how do you start writing a verse? And usually it's some type of like, just, pick words and then begin, like basically start writing, and writing will produce more writing. Because if you don't write, you don't produce anything. So you just start writing, even if it's not like the idea, and then eventually an idea comes, and then you run into some other problems, right? So this problem here, the getting organized, and then this is really more about, let's say you get to a point where you are, I saw that people freestyling, right? And even some people who are doing like freestyle writing, where it's just like, okay, for the next 5 minutes, I'm just gonna write whatever comes to mind. And you have like, you have it on your phone, you have it in this little post-it note over here, you have it in this journal. And then when it comes time to like, all right, now I wanna like, put it into a song, there's no real process for that, right? And I mean, probably less so now, I would imagine, because of like, again, internet and just everybody having easier access to like, all right, I can get this free recording program and then start going, start making something. But I think this idea of really getting organized is like, if you really want to start taking your rap writing to a higher level where you're more consistent with your output, then the getting organized part really revolves around your systems of writing. When do you write? When do you rewrite? When do you revise? When do you record? All that stuff. So when you think about the problem of getting organized, like basically just getting your stuff together, what comes up for you? Again, let's do 90 seconds on that, and keep the chat coming, keep the comments coming. I think that's what makes this a little bit different than everything else out there, where it's not just sit and get. I really want to hear from you. So 90 seconds. How do you get organized? How do you get your processes together to produce your verses, to produce your rap writing? Hello to you. Sam from Ive Learned. Yeah, so Ive the. Is it Jekyll or Jackal? Ive the Jackal. All right. So like once you understand, part of getting organized too is just like understanding your process, meaning like, oh, when I play beats and just write, that's when I can produce, better content, more effective content. And then the next step is, all right, when do I do that? Right? When, what time of day, how do I, it's really, that's kind of when you start getting into like time management, energy management stuff for your rap writing, to get to a more organized place with it. And, this is for the, the person that wants to take their craft from like, okay, I write raps just because it's fun and it's cool, but to the point of like, no, I am, pursuing a level of mastery in the craft. And so, with that level of mastery, I can make music, I can, do ghostwriting, right? I can, offer this as a service, as opposed to just like, all right, I just do it for myself, right? So that's part of I think getting organized is part of like getting serious about your rap writing. And but on a level of just everyday writing, like we have to have a process that allows us to produce effective results. So that's that problem. All right, find focus. So this one's an interesting one for rap writers because there's this idea of the freestyle verse, especially we're talking about rap writing. And obviously freestyling, it's, you know, that's one of the challenges is like, can I actually freestyle something that actually has a central focus versus freestyling and it's just like whatever comes to mind. And I'm not saying like, you know, I mean, as a freestyler, like I understand the joy and the benefit of like just going wherever the words take you and the ideas take you. But then as a rap writer and as like a communicator through freestyling, I understand the power of really having kind of a central idea that you're speaking to, that all these metaphors and images that can be connected to, right? So the challenge here and the problem here with defining focus is that oftentimes, you know, especially if you're doing that technique of I'm gonna play some beats and I'm just gonna write, you know, if you don't have a central idea going in, right, it's going to be kind of whatever comes up. And then what some people don't do, especially in the beginning, is like they'll write the verse is done, and then you ask them what the verse is about and they can't tell you, right? And then the other problems in finding focus, it says not knowing to begin. It's actually supposed to be not knowing how to begin, but that's okay. The problem there is like, okay, now let's say you do want to write about a particular topic, but you don't know like how to start the bar, start the line, right? And so that's a particular focus. Like, what's the entry point into this verse that gets the attention, but also sets up like the rest of the verse, and they can't decide what to pick. This is like, it could be about a topic, like which topic do you write about? It could also be in the process of writing where it's like, you know, you have two choices to make and you're not sure which way to go. So with finding a focus, when you have a focused verse, I mean, I think even freestyle verses can still have some focus to them, but generally speaking, when you're very clear about what you're writing about, like what it's really about, then it makes the choices that you have to make much easier and simpler to solve, right? Because you come back to like the central focus of the verse. If you are writing a verse and you haven't decided on a central focus, then you have too many possibilities to choose from. You know, it's analysis by paralysis. It's the paradox of choice at that point where you know, so many words rhyme and, you know, this idea is exciting and that idea is exciting. And, you know, then it's like, okay, well, which one, you know, is better? Well, there's no way to tell because you don't have that central focus. So, again, 90 seconds on that. What comes up for you when you think about the challenge of finding focus? What's that?
So, on the last one, Ive Learned was said, I'm trying to find a beach method at 6 p.m. every day. And then, like, 3 seconds ago, Professor X, I'm just realizing, like, putting my flows and stuff before writing it is better. I put the best flows. I like the they just put the words, not necessarily.
Finding the flow first, find rhythm. Yeah. That's the other advantage of rap writing is that because we have that additional thing that we have to write, which is the rhythm that you really can't capture on paper unless you're, you know, notating rhythm while you write. And I don't think it's necessary. Some people might do that, but yeah, the rhythm, you know, like, all right, here's the, you know, there's this technique I heard You know, I know Michael Jackson did this for his songwriting, and then from there, I think rap writers have done this as well throughout time, where you scat something and you capture the rhythm. I've done this too, where it's like I hear a beat and I start scatting a rhythm to it, and then that becomes my anchor, right? Because then it's like, I literally do make choices about what I'm gonna write based on if it really fits the rhythm that I want to keep. Because I tend to do like every 4 bars. You know, if I'm gonna do a flow switch, it's usually every 4 bars when I'm doing rap writing. So yeah, that the rhythm can be that focusing element as well. But I think also beyond that, when we actually get into the content of your words, you know, really getting clear about, you know, essentially what this is. And again, this is hip hop lit as in literature. It's like the theme. Like if you're really clear on the theme of what you're writing about, then all those other pieces can fall into place. Going back to the puzzle analogy, right? When you know the picture that you're trying to build, then it's easier to find the pieces you need when you need them to build that picture, versus where, you know, it's kind of fuzzy, right? So let's move on to the next one. Okay, finding the words. So some things that come up, right? Too few words, not enough words, tired and stale, cliche, and then cloudy language. I mean, so this is where, you know, I mean, rap is rhythm and poetry, right? So this is the crux of like, it's like, yes, having a good flow and a good rhythm is like you can hide a lot behind that, right? Like, because again, at the end of the day, rap writing is for music, and music is an experience. It creates a feeling. So, you know, having the right type of cadence and flow and delivery with just like scatting can make a song, you know, like, oh, that's so cool, right? But when we get down into like, you know, lyricism and all of that, then it really comes down to word choice. And I think sometimes what we don't do when we don't make time to actually revise things and come back to it is that we settle for kind of just cliched rhymes, right? You know, love and dove. You know, I've noticed this in my freestyling every day that like, yeah, I'm using a lot of perfect rhymes. And for those who don't know what perfect rhymes are, right? There are rhymes that are like, you know, they look like they rhyme and sound like they rhyme as far as how they're spelled, torn and born, right? And by doing that, you know, my rhymes can become predictable when I'm freestyling. When I go to write, I may need to go and like, I might do my first drafts where I do have some of the predictable rhymes in there. And if it serves my overall theme that I'm trying to communicate, then I go back through and I'm starting to pick at certain words to see if I can make them more specific, or if I can like say it in a different way so that it's not a cliched rhyme, right? Or it's not even a cliched sentiment. But in order to do this, right, and finding the words, you have to know what's cliche and what's been tired. You got to listen to a lot of things, right? And then beyond just like in the rap genre of like listening to a lot of stuff and, you know, not trying to have like cliche sentiments and ideas, right? I think reading and looking at words and ads and you know, especially ads, because they have to communicate a lot of information with little words as possible, right? And you'll when you really start paying attention to that stuff, then you start recognizing like, oh, I see why they chose this word versus that word, because this word is more specific, and then, you know, creates a reaction in people, right? So you have to actually be gathering and doing, you know, research and playing in words and kind of keeping those, you know, looking at them a little bit more deeply, and then to bring it to your rap writing to where you can be very specific with what you try to do with it. So, man, there's so much more to say on finding the words, and I think there'll probably be some class as well. We'll dive deep into that. But And it reminds me of, I think it was it Hyde the Jackal that said, I was talking about having like, staying in construction, instruction, destruction, like just maybe staying in a rhyme too long. Was that? I know that was happening, but that was someone else.
That was mixed Alice Raptis.
Okay, it was someone else. I didn't catch the name. But so yeah, all those decisions, right, about the words to use. So what comes up for you in the challenge of finding the words? All right, so let's do some 90 seconds on that. So what comes up for you in finding the words? Finding the right word that rhymes, all that stuff. Mixalis raptus.
They're talking about how to change your flow from going really fast, like rapping slower. And then Professor X said, once we recognize they don't flow to produces on the next bars, you get something fast smash.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, listen to
The music. Yeah, shouts out to Epidemic Sound. That's what I'm using for the music right now. So it's royalty free, so I don't get the get the little copyright warnings. Yeah, I mean that's why it's an art. The balance between you can be very technical about it and then lose people, and you can be very simple about it and gain attention. But then when you look at the craft side of it, you're like, like some of the most simplest rhymes can be effective if you understand the art of finding the words at the right time, at the right moment. So yeah, I mean, it really does come down to word choice. Epidemic Sounds is the provider I'm using, and it's like I guess a quick plug for Epidemic Sounds. All right. It's basically a service that has like producers who you can find these tracks on Spotify, but they've allowed Epidemic Sounds to be able to like serve them out to various YouTube channels and for like commercials and licensing and things like that. So that's who I'm using. Once I get this more dialed in, I'll try to find a way of like being able to maybe display like what beats are being played, so that way you can even go support the producer and the artist directly. So maybe it's one for the notes. All right, let's keep it moving. Craft the draft. So this is essentially when you're going to write the first version, write the first draft of the rap, whatever. And the problems that come up: writer's block, procrastination, and no plan. And I think rap writers, we deal with all this stuff. Difference between writer's block and procrastination. Writer's block is like essentially when you don't have the desire to write anymore. Like you go to write and like nothing happens. And partly that is due to, perfectionism, right? As a recovering perfectionist, I understand, like, I tell this story all the time, and I'll tell it the very short version of just when I first tried to write a rap, and, I was on a car ride, and basically, again, no one showed me how to actually do it. I heard some raps. I was like, I think I could do that. And so I was on a car, and I had my notebook, and I had my pencil because I was a kid, about 11. And, it was about an hour, 2-hour trip trying to write a rap, and nothing happened, right? And part of what was going on for me was that I'm trying to create something like I heard, which was like a perfected process, the end result, when I have never started. So it was that kind of perfectionism that I had that created that writer's block in that moment. And if you don't have the desire to write when you once had it, it's possibly to look at the perfectionism side of it. And there's some other things that might come up with it. And if people really want, we can do a whole mini lesson about just writer's block and like what goes, various aspects that we can become blocked. Procrastination. Now this is the okay, you've done the writing, like you actually have an idea of what you want to write about, but every time you go to write, something comes up, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to do this instead. I'm going to, play this game. I'm going to go, sometimes we can procrastinate in a positive way. It's like, oh yeah, I need to write this first, but I'm going to go take out the trash and clean my room and do all these other things. That's like, okay, yeah, you cleaned your room. Awesome. But this verse that you said you're going to get done, you're not doing, right? And, that procrastination, there's a whole, again, writer's block, procrastination related, but a little bit different. And there's a whole lot that goes into why those things occur. And so I'm curious what comes up for people when we break out here for a couple seconds to talk about it. The no plan. And I think this is where rap can really, like, people who write raps can, really take it to the next level. Like actually having a plan for the writing. And what I mean by that is you find your focus, find kind of like, okay, I'm going to talk about this. And then when you decide that you're going to talk about this, then make out essentially it could be like an outline. It doesn't have to be all technical with the Roman numerals and stuff like that, but just an idea of like, okay, this quatrain is about this part of the idea, this next set of 4 bars about this part of the idea. Because when you're writing to a plan, then again, it makes the decisions that you need to make and word choicing and rhythm simpler, right? And again, just like a puzzle, like in the puzzle, what do? We usually build the edges first, right? And then once we have the edges, it's easier to find other pieces that go in the middle. So I say when you're really like trying to craft, highly focused verses and really improve the lyricism, right? I think and have an overall effective verse, coming up with a plan. I don't think a lot of rap writers do this. I think they write as they go. And again, once you do it for a while, like you're still writing to a plan, even if you're creating a plan as you go. But I think that you can make your rap writing process more effective and efficient if you understand that, oh, I plan as I go. So what if I just kind of make a plan right now and then write to that plan? And of course plans change and that's all good. You be flexible with it. But I think you might notice you'll get a better result. Like you'll enjoy your verse a little bit more and it might be a little simpler to execute. So anyway, problems that come up for you in crafting your first draft. What do we notice? Let's do 90 seconds on that. I think we have like maybe 1 or 2 more and then we'll be wrapping up. I'll check it when back there. Yeah. Yeah, and there's a balance, right? And I think it needs to be as simple as it needs to be for you. And I guess here's what I'll say is that, and I'm talking to my, who's helping me out is my oldest son, who's 18, right? And I have a 3-year-old and I'm married and I have, I teach high school and I'm doing this and all this stuff. So as an adult writer, right, my youth writing was like, oh, I have 6 hours to make a beat, right? Like I could just do however I feel for that 6 hours because, my folks are working, I finished my schoolwork and, nobody else is around. I got this stuff, so I can just, put all that time in. And like as I, get older and get more responsibilities and all that stuff, I don't have a big chunk of 6 hours to just like dive in and like make a whole song, right? And so what I've discovered, and even what I teach, that kind of helps eliminate the ways that we fill that 6 hours. Because if you give me 6 hours today, I could probably make an EP with like 6 hours if I'm not too in my head about it. But being able to have a process that allows you to, one, enjoy it, right? If you're not enjoying it, then it's not sustainable. But two, be the most effective with your time, because it's precious. And so when I think about this idea of like, and I'll kind of reveal like my actual writing process in later classes, but it's based on writing every day. And by doing a little bit every day, I noticed that you can start doing, coming up with a plan and not having to, it actually makes it simple, so it doesn't actually get overcomplicated. So, everybody has their own process, but the main point here is that we all have to deal with these 7 problem areas as we're writing, and understanding how you deal with them, then you can improve that part of the process when you need to improve it. So it's more of it's not like a one size fits all. It's just more of like, here are the levers and the pieces that I need to pay attention to be able to get the result I'm looking for in my writing. So assessing your process, is this good? Can I finish? This is really, this comes with experience, and the experience can also come with like, it comes with the experience of like just you doing it, but it also comes with the experience of you like listening to, other rappers and other, and reading, and not just listening and reading for enjoyment, but then listening and reading to really understand, okay, I like this line in this bar. Why? What's happening? And then really start thinking about the word relationships in it, the cadence, the rhythm, all the components that go into that verse. Then once you've done that analysis to understand like, this is what I like about it, now when you go to do your rap writing, you have a metric, if you will, to kind of like compare it to, right? You have instead of being like, I'm going to write in the style of, I'm just going to say Snoop Dogg just because he has a, pretty distinct style, right? You could talk about the elements that make up his style and then see if that is present in your rap writing. So I think what people tend to do, or especially when I talk to people about like, like part of like why this whole channel exists and why I've really leaned back into this idea is that I like looking at what's happening underneath. I like doing this interpretation and analysis and seeing like all the little components, the complexity of this thing that seems so simple. While a lot of folks, who are in the like, okay, you're rap writing because you want to make a song, you want to get that album out, you want to have a career, right? That's where the focus goes, and so it's just more about executing and getting the result. And I'm really into the process. And so when sometimes you talk to rap writers, and you ask them like, it's like, how do I know if I'm on track, right? They'll give you a lot of like high level, like, you just got to trust that it happens. You just do your best with it. If it's got that feeling, if they got that, right, then you're on the right track. And you're like, okay, yeah, I got that. And then you go to write and you're like, does this have that, And it's like, what does that really mean, right? And so what I'm telling you is, if there's something that gives you that, from like, ooh, that was dope, go back, listen to it over and over, figure out the components of it. And then if you can identify those components in your writing, then you're on the right track with where your verse needs to go, right? And the other problem here of can I finish? This is more about can I end the verse, right? Can I complete this idea? And sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. It's okay. If you're writing all the time, you'll start to recognize that the majority of what you write will not leave the page. Like, no one's going to hear it. right? The majority of what you put down is really just you working the art, doing the practice. And then there'll be about a 20% that you feel comfortable releasing. And then probably from that 20%, there might be a 20% of that that's like starts to like catch on. And that's just kind of the nature of the game, the nature of a lot of things, really, of how like the majority of what we do or the results that we get come from like a minimal, like a certain leverage point of effort. So what comes up for y'all? How do you assess your progress as you're writing your verse? What challenges, how's that getting in your way? Another thing I was thinking about, self-talk. You know, like when you're writing your verse, it's like, is this dope? Is this good? Or like, I don't know about this. You know, it's like, I'm just going to finish it, but I don't feel good about it. And then you come back to it and you're like, oh, that's pretty bad. Fun fact, that's how my early writing experiences were. In high school, it was like, this sucks, but I got to write it. This sucks. And then I forget about it for a week and then come back and read it. And it's like, oh, this is okay. I'm actually okay with it. So, what comes up for you assessing your progress? What challenges?
Silas Raptors and Hive the Jackal were talking about how to writing something for yourself versus writing something for others, and writing like relatable lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
And Hive the Jackal said, for me, the core for writing is, am I having fun? And he's trying to see, he doesn't want to lose that all for writing for other people, only just something else. In terms of progress, say I write to a beat and I've got something near a full rough draft, it's rare that I come back to it. So the revision process is hard. Maybe I should set up a specific routine.
Yeah. I think that's the last problem area, is the making it better, which is the revision part. I can wax poetic on that idea of writing yourself versus writing for others. The short version of that, this is where we'll start for a second. We'll go to this, but the short version of writing for yourself versus writing for others is it starts with yourself. Then if you are okay, I'm going to keep this at a hobby level where I'm just doing it for myself, then it really never has to leave that. But if you start having this idea of like, okay, I want to make songs to share with other people, then you start thinking about others. And it's not an all or nothing kind of thing. I think if you go completely in the direction of, okay, I'm just going to write this song for this person, then you're approaching the singer-songwriter status, like ghostwriting even, right? Where I'm writing this verse for this particular, person, audience, and, maybe I deliver, but I don't feel it, so maybe I don't deliver it, or maybe someone else delivers it, or maybe I still deliver it. And I think there's those who get to the balance of this, the highest level of where it's the marriage of the two, where it's like you're writing for, you recognize that you're writing for others, but you're also able to do it in a way that is still connected to you, still connected to, the ideas and the thoughts and the emotion that you want to put out in the world. And I think that's what allows, hey, someone like Busta Rhymes, for example, to be, that allows for longevity, right? You have a whole lot of rappers who will have a hot song now in the moment, a lot of streams, viral, all that stuff. 5 years from now, where are they? Right? They figured out the piece to be able to connect to that audience in the moment, but did they find that piece that's like, all right, this is the story that I want to tell, and I need to put this out there, and blending of the two. So that was a short version. That didn't feel very short, but whatever. All right, last one is make it better. So need to revise, way too long, too short. Haters. Let me see. The I'm going to talk about revision the most. The way too long, too short. Really, that's just more about understanding the craft at that point. How many bars are you writing, and understanding like, okay, I know how to write 16, 20, 24, or whatever, and being able to write to that. So that's and sometimes when people write drafts, especially when I've seen this in the beginning rap writing, it's like they write lines that are too long, right? And they don't know how to, like, oh, I can't make this line fit. And it's like, oh, because I like to use syllable counts as a way to like guide that. But essentially, it's like, oh, you've put too many syllables in this line. So we got to take some of those out, right? And that happens in the revision process. Or like, oh, this one doesn't land right. And it's like, oh, you're rhyming here, but then your rhyming word and the next line is like supposed to be over here. Maybe we add some more syllables into this line so that way the rhyming words line up a little bit better. And here's the thing too. So for those who struggle with revision, if you're writing to a beat, you're probably doing revision as you go, right? Because you have an idea that doesn't quite fit the line, and then you write it down and you notice it doesn't fit the line, then you scratch it out and then rewrite the line so it fits, right? Or you do one of the techniques where you write the line, like you think of the line, you test it, right? You say it to the beat, like, yeah, that works, and then you write it down. And then you do it like you're doing the writing in your head and you're just capturing it on the paper or phone or whatever, right? That's revision, because where's the first time the writing is happening? In your head, right? And then the next time you put it on paper, it's like you've gone through it a few times to make sure it fits, since that's what you wanted to say. And I would even bet that when you're going from your mind to putting it on paper, sometimes as you're writing it, you'll get a different idea, a subtle idea that makes it better. And that is revision as well. But what I like here, I guess I'll talk about my writing process a little bit here. So when let's say you want a verse from me or whatever, between, now and like how many days I have to like, do it, what I like to do is just write towards the topic and idea every single day. And then if I do my minimum, which is like 4 bars a day, it's like, all right, I'm gonna write at least 4 bars a day towards this idea. I can write more if I want to, but at least 4. And let's say it's 10 days before I need to like record the verse. I have at least 40 bars that deal with the topic and the subject. And then as I'm writing it, I'm, getting some rest. My brain gets some power, so I'm able to come at it with a fresh perspective. I'm finding my focus. I'm finding what I really want to say. I'm crafting my plan as I'm going through these 10 days. And so by the time it gets to the 10 days, it's like the problem I like to have is I have 40 bars that I need to condense into 16. So I just need to figure out the best 16 lines of the 40 and put it together to make my verse. And that's quite literally, it's puzzling at that point, because I already know that I have all the pieces there, right? I have more than the pieces that I need, and then I have the picture that I want to create. But that requires writing every day to do it that way, and believing in the idea of revision, to look at it again to make it better, and being patient. Let me see, haters. This is just when you put it out there, you can get some critiques on it, and that can send your writing create some blocks. I think that's, kind of a separate area. But Busta Rhymes, I want to talk about Busta Rhymes for a second. So Extinction Level Event 2 essentially came out December 2020, I believe. And it was 11 years before he released it, right? And I was trying to find the very interview where he speaks to this idea, but essentially what he said, and kind of addressing why it took so long and why it was, 11 years, it was like the ability to put together special moments and capture them in the album, that if because he started recording it 11 years ago and it could have came out then, right? But there's moments and things that happened that by taking this time with it and taking his time with it and being patient with it, that made the album what it is. And it's a great album. It's a great concept album for those who are into concept albums. So check it out. But those moments don't happen without time. Without time and dedication and persistence and making it what it is. And so in our own writing from day to day, it's like, why do you have to have the perfect verse the first time you write it? Like, well, who says that, right? Why not take your time with it? Why not write every day? Because you're by writing every day, you're practicing your craft. But then let those moments happen. Let that insight that's going to happen from 3 days from now, that's, that observation you just make about like something that you see in the corner. It's like, now your brain subconsciously can connect that to what you've been writing about. But if you're in a hurry to try to finish that verse, that night, or it's like, okay, here's the studio session, I'm going to write this verse today. It's like, if you know the studio session's coming up, start writing from that day forward. So that way you have the benefit and the grace of time to find some moments to see it again in a different way that can take your verse to another level. All right, 90 seconds, making it better. What's the challenges that come up for y'all in revision? Like, why do we not want to revise our stuff? Why do we just want to write it down and be done?
Let's see. Mixella's rap just said, dang, that's a long road, respect. Ive the Jackal said, patience. Mixella's rap just said, well, because if you record 10 whack tracks and I want great, you already lost many people from hearing it.
Yeah, so that's, I can speak to that one in a couple ways as far as like 10 whack. And then, one, if I'm writing for a verse, I'm not recording, like literally for my process, I'm writing in like a journal, right? So I'm not sharing those 10, right? I'm giving myself, and I think this is in the last lesson, like it doesn't come out pristine, right? And how I've been able to get to some verses that I really enjoy. And that's like, all right, I'm very intentional about everything I'm saying and how I'm saying it. By overwriting, I've been able to craft the one, right? Like there's a process for everything. So if you're trying to find a diamond of a verse, you can't, you don't, like a diamond is not just, it takes time to put that pressure on the diamond. You get what I'm saying? Like it doesn't just pop out. And so I'm not telling you to release 10 verses and put them out there. You can if you want to, right? But what I'm saying is you can, if you give yourself the time and give yourself the practice with it, right? Like, I want to say, I don't know. I know too many rappers that have the name Rich in there. I think Roddy Rich is who I'm thinking about. But I could be have the wrong name on it. But people who there's current rappers now that have careers who they get in the studio every day, right? And what they're doing, right, is they're doing this process where they're writing and they're creating every day. They don't release everything that they create, but they're going through the process. They have a whole lot of stuff that they think is whack. And if they were afraid to do that, they would never be able to find the gem. They would never be able to find the diamond in all that. So I'm hoping that makes sense. We want to, we think it's faster to be able to just, all right, hold it. That's not a good idea. That's not a good idea. And then boom, that's the idea. We think it's faster, but really what's happening is you're wasting so much energy, psychic energy, emotional energy, doing that versus just creating and writing and producing stuff. And then as you're writing and producing stuff, you get in a flow. And then when you get in a flow, then that idea has a chance to get to you, with less effort and sooner. But it feels counterproductive because you're writing every day, so it feels like you're doing a lot of effort. So I hope that makes sense. So 3 vital keys, and I want to mean by vital is like, these are like, there's other things you can do to address a lot of these different problems, but I think the 3 core of it that I use for myself are these things. So write every day in a journal, whatever, it could be your phone, but just essentially be in a practice of writing every day. Because if you're in a practice of writing every day, you're in a practice of doing creative work. You're literally taking the stuff that you see in your life, you experience internally, and you're putting it, out there in writing. And even if the writing is not verses, even if it's just like a collection of thoughts, that works too, because then you have thoughts that you could talk about, that you could turn into verses. In my practice, when I write every day and I'm writing to just kind of process what's going on emotionally, mentally, all that stuff, if I have a long writing session with it, it starts turning into poetry, just because I have a very nonlinear brain, and I think in metaphors. Like, that's just, how I've come to just process the world. So as I'm thinking in metaphors to really try to describe what's going on for me internally, it's like, oh, I got a metaphor, and now I'm turning this into a poem, and then I can decide if I wanted to take it into the full rap zone, or if I wanted to stay, poetic, or if I just want to leave it as it is and not even publish it. It's just, again, it's the habit of writing every day keeps me creative. So I would suggest that. I think that's vital to this. It's writing every day, and I think some people already do that. And writing your mind, observations every day, and really writing for me is not just scribing. So scribing is like literally like when you type it or write it down, right? But writing is whenever you take the time to notice something, and to make that observation, like to notice it and remember it, that you can use later in your writing. And I mean, and I do this for freestyling too, where it's just like, okay, I heard a word that was interesting today. Let me note that for myself, so then I can use that when I'm freestyling, and I go through a process in my head that just helps me kind of have a better chance of integrating it into like my kind of my rhyming brain, my freestyle vocabulary. But writing, pre-writing. So for those people who don't necessarily like scribe every day, if you have some kind of practice of where like you're making mental notes to yourself about like, okay, yeah, this thing happened and that thing happened, or I saw this here, and just rehearsing that, then that can be an act of pre-writing as well. And I think, I haven't met Jay-Z or anything, but what I would imagine for someone like him who's known for, constructing verses mentally, that he's doing that. He has, some type of way of writing in his mind, right? And the other piece about this observations of your day is that that's the source of the creativity. Like, all the ideas are like coming from your experiences. And so noting that, gathering those ideas intentionally for writing is another way of being able to produce rap writing. And then share your verses, study, repeat, right? Put it out there. If you put it out there now, especially in this day and age, you get feedback. And, I know it's hard to get feedback that's like, it's not good, it's whack, it sucks, and people might troll you. And it doesn't kill you, right? If you're able to, it can make you better. And if you can get into communities that like actually give you constructive feedback and be like, oh yeah, you should try this or try that. Like, yeah, that part, I don't know about that, but maybe if you do this, right? Communities that are really trying to build you up, then you avoid a lot of the just folks who are just trolling just for entertainment, right? They're like, it's more about them and, their, issues essentially. So share your verses, put them out there. If it's not every day, try to do at least once a week. you get feedback on it. You go through the process of going from having an idea to putting it out, the whole publishing process. Studying is just listening, right? Listening to rappers, but also just good writing in general. You know, read, gather words, read about words, the histories of words, and keep repeating the process. So that's it. Let me see some reflection. So let's take some time. We'll do like 3 minutes with this, and I want to see what folks are talking about in the chat. But what do you notice about your writing process, and then what kind of problem is your biggest? What kind of problem is your biggest writing challenge? And so in that, earlier, I don't know when you jumped in, but I was asking, like, when you think about your biggest challenge with rap writing or writing in general, which one does it connect to? Like, of those 7, and it's getting started, it's getting organized, finding focus, assessing progress, making it better. I'm missing 2, just trying to do it from memory. Craft the draft. I think I said assess progress. Which one did I miss? I missed one. I can go back to it.
I got it.
You got it?
Find the words.
Oh yeah, find the words. So finding language. So let's see what you come up with for that.
Let's see. For me, Hide the Jackal, I noticed inconsistency in like a structure. Last thing they're talking about, McSallis rap, this is not a fan of right. Read it. And Hide the Jackal is just here.
All right.
Oh, they were talking about how it's good to have like longer projects and shorter projects, like have a good mix.
Yeah.
Oh, and he said something else. Biggest challenge is doubt. Like, am I sincere in my lyrics? And sometimes I stop myself when I go deep or kind of grim.
Yeah, I think I'm keeping. I don't know. There might be a class, or I might even do like a mini. Because I was thinking about this last night about talking about like rap writing for self-awareness, mental health, like even freestyling for rap for mental health and self-awareness, because I think there's that component to all of this as well. And what I'll say again, what I've been doing with this channel really since like day one, back in the old MC Mind days, it's the same channel, just changed the name. My intention here is, mastery of the craft as a way of mastering yourself, right? And all right. There are some. So I'm not really thinking about like the commercial aspect of it. Like, I'm not thinking like, my idea here is if we have folks who master their craft and then decide they're pursuing a rap career, then being a master of the craft will help that, right? And maybe down the line I'll offer some courses and ideas around around careers, but really I'm focusing more on craft and personal development. And so I think I wanted to say that just to kind of set up the expectation, because there's a lot of teachers online, and no diss to anybody, they just have different angles on it, right? And the angle that I'm taking is more about like I speak to those who know that they will rap for the rest of their life, regardless of career. Like that's who I'm here for, right? I'm for those who just want a career. I'm not necessarily the guy for you. I mean, I have there'll be things you can benefit from, but just know that like when I'm speaking about like processes, I'm speaking at it from a standpoint of those who enjoy the pursuit of mastery of rap for its own sake, not to an end of trying to have a rap career. So hopefully that makes sense. And I think it helps, it just kind of helps to know like where your teacher's coming from because that is, it's kind of knowing the motives of the teacher, right? So next class is going to be the next week. So we're on the schedule for the 20th, so next Saturday. And we're going to get into the art of rap writing. And I'm going to take it from, I'm going to, so from what I could tell for some of the folks that are watching right now, it's like you have a process and you're doing it, and that's great and that's awesome. I'm going to kind of present the art of rap writing, at least this next class. I'm going to take it from assuming like, all right, I'm going to go from the how to start place. So by the end of the next class, right, if you've never, written a rap before, you'll know how to get started with it. And then for those of us who've actually like have a practice, I think what this can do, especially when I'm thinking about if you have like areas like I don't know if what to talk about all the time, like I think going through this process will allow you to have a more structured approach that you can adapt. It'll give you like a baseline of like, okay, here's a fundamental process, and then from there, how do I apply that to give myself a little bit more structure to make it a little simpler and easier for me to continue to write raps. So I think that is it. Are there any just questions for me before we get into that?
When is it going to take place?
Next class. So next class is March 20th. So that should be next Saturday. And we started a little late today. I'm trying to start these around like 9:15 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Today we had technical difficulties. I think we got started like about an hour and a half late. But that's the plan. So 9:15 the stream should be live, and I'll probably jump on between like 9:20, like once everything is set up. And then I'll find a way to share a schedule. If on Instagram at DLUXTL, if you want to follow me there. We're also on Instagram at Rhyme Masters Official. You can follow me there as well. And I'm suggesting this so that way, because I'm going to post a schedule there, and so you can kind of know when these classes are coming up, because it's not every Saturday just because of prior commitments and things. And then plus you'll see, I'm been freestyling every day since I started in February. I'm still going through March, and I'm actually teaching. I'm actually doing some deliberate freestyle practice. I'm calling it March Metaphors, and so it's really like, okay, I'm gonna practice freestyling with a specific technique to be able to, again, master their craft, right? So, other questions? Come to
how many days from now?
How many days? 7. All right, today's 13th. 7. So next Saturday. Cool. And then, yeah. And then I'll always end all my classes with this kind of choice. So, if you had which do you prefer? 90s hip hop or 2000 hip hop? And I mean like early 2000s. So 90s to 2000s, right? Or 2000s to 2010. That's how I look at that. So what's our preference? And I would, if we were live, I'd be like 1, 2, 3 and have you put it in the chat. But let's just see what folks come up with.
Mixed house rap is 2000s.
2000s?
Hide the Jackal said 90s.
Okay, check out more
Oh, no,
90s.
I gotta check out more 90s.
Yeah. I got it rolling right now.
Also mid 90s, but gotta say 2000s.
Yeah.
And then Hide the Jackal said, I think I got 90s then.
90s too. Yeah, I mean, there was the thing about the 90s. I mean, I'll say 90s just because, you know, that's, you know, my era, in a sense of, you know, when I was growing up and being exposed to it. The thing about the 90s and is one of the reasons it's called the golden era is because, like, when there was, like, there's a lot of styles being represented, a lot of styles of hip hop being represented during a good majority of the 90s. And then kind of in the 2000s, it started getting to, like, there was, like, one, you know, like, all right, here's the mainstream sound, you know, and then you had everything that was underground that you had to find. And then, like, I think now where we're at is, you know, you have, it's, you know, and playlist culture, right? There's all these subgenres of rap that, you know, like, I don't even really bother trying to, like, keep up and be on it like I used to be, because it's just so numerous and so vast that and everybody has, you know, it's all curated to you, you know, and that's part of you know, part of the world that we're in. And it presents, you know, there's advantages and disadvantages just like anything else. But I think as far as rap writing goes, there's a core, there's a principle, there's principles to it that go through all the genres of it. And then after those few core principles, then you start getting into the specifics of the subgenre that you're in. So, you know, rhythmic demands that come from, like, you know, mainstream rap versus boom bap and drill and all that stuff. Right. Okay. We did it, y'all. Thank you for checking out. I just kind of, like, launched this. I didn't, you know, promote it. I was like, all right, I'm going to just do it because I want to put the content out there in the world. I want to build a community of people who love to rap. So that's what Rhyme Masters is about. So if you're into that, the whole idea, and you want to join that mission, we are not a problem, man. We are rhymemasters.com is the place to go. And you know, there's like we freestyle. We have our ciphers every Friday, 8:30 Pacific Standard Time in the PM, 8:30 to 10:30, and it's good vibes. It's all about, again, master of the craft, freestyling, as well as, like, personal development. So it's a supportive place to be there. And yeah, I'm glad you came through and checked it out. Cool. Mixalis Raptus? Is that?
That's what I was trying to say.
I wonder. I gotta figure out my YouTube names. I gotta. Mixalis Raptus? Mixalis? Alright, I'm gonna say it in two different ways, okay? Let me know which one's closer. Alright? So there's Mixalis Raptus, that's one. Alright? And then Mixalis Raptus. It's Michael. It's Michael in Greek. Okay. It's Michael in Greek. Okay.
That's innovation.
Mahalis? Like a... Is that how I would say it in Greek? Like, kind of like... Yeah. Don't worry about it. Well, I try to, and one of the things I love to do is, you know, it'll be hard for me to figure it out in this format, but what I try to do is, really say names correctly, because I believe it's important. So, if you wanna, Yeah, hide is that is.
What other?
Are you hitting me with some more Greek right now?
Yeah, there's another Greek guy
Another Greek? Okay. All right. Greek representing. All right. It's like, no, that's not it. All right. Well, I'll see if I can figure it out, and maybe if you join me next week, I might get to it. But you said it's Michael in Greek, and then how it's spelled, is that how it's spelled in Greek too? Love from India. All right. India in the building. Got some air horns for that. Oh, let's do. I like this. These are better. There you go. Watch all the videos. I appreciate it, man. I really do. It's with different letters. It's not the same as English letters. Okay. All right. Well, I'll do some research and see if I can figure out how to say it. Can I just say Raptus in the meantime? Nomadic Fever Official. Sugar Ride, man. Yeah. I hope you're referring to this channel. I appreciate you.
Nice.
All right. Thank you, folks. I appreciate your time and your energy for being here. We'll be here again. We'll be here again next Saturday, 9:15 if everything goes well, Pacific Standard Time. And you know, with that, let me see. I don't really have a closing thing anymore. Do you have any final words back there you want to add? Bye. Peace out. All right. Thank you. Appreciate you. The deuce is, and until next time.
You want me to end it?
Oh, you can end it.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Cool. Let's do it.